The Neanderthals were one of the most fascinating and misunderstood branches of the human family tree. For a long time, they were portrayed as primitive, brutish, and less intelligent beings who roamed Ice Age Europe and Asia, living short, harsh lives until they were inevitably replaced by modern humans. Yet in recent decades, discoveries in archaeology, anthropology, and genetics have painted a very different picture. Far from being crude and unintelligent, Neanderthals were highly adaptable, resourceful, and even creative. To truly understand who they were, we must dive into their physical characteristics, daily life survival strategies, and the remarkable evidence that shows how advanced they really were for their time. Physically, Neanderthals were distinct from modern humans, but not in the ways we often imagine. They were shorter and stockier than us, with powerful builds that were perfectly suited to the cold environments of Ice Age Europe. Their bodies were strong, with broad chests, muscular arms, and robust bones, making them excellent hunters and gatherers in a challenging climate. Their faces were characterized by prominent brow ridges, wide noses, and larger skulls that housed brains often as large as, or sometimes even larger than, those of modern humans. This already challenges the stereotype of Neanderthals as less intelligent. Their brain size suggests they were capable of complex thought and problem solving, much like Homo sapiens. In terms of lifestyle, Neanderthals were nomadic hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons to follow herds of animals and find new food sources. They hunted large Ice Age mammals such as mammoths, bison, and reindeer, but also relied on smaller animals, fish, and plant-based foods when available. Hunting such large and dangerous animals required cooperation, planning, and sophisticated tools. Evidence shows that Neanderthals crafted stone tools with remarkable skill, shaping them for cutting, scraping, and hunting purposes. These tools were not random or clumsy, but carefully designed and adapted for specific tasks. The craftsmanship reveals an advanced understanding of technology, resource use, and survival in harsh environments. Fire also played a central role in Neanderthal life. They knew how to control and maintain fire, which was crucial not just for cooking food, but for warmth protection and social gatherings. Archaeological evidence shows that they constructed hearths and cooking areas, suggesting that fire was part of their daily routine. Fire also allowed them to extend their survival into colder regions and adapt to different climates. Cooking, in particular, made their food easier to digest and provided more energy, which was essential for their physically demanding lives. What is perhaps even more fascinating is the evidence of culture and symbolic behavior among Neanderthals. Far from being mere survival-driven beings, they appear to have engaged in practices that suggest a deeper sense of meaning and community. Burial sites have been found where Neanderthals deliberately placed their dead in graves, sometimes with tools, flowers, or symbolic items. This suggests that they had concepts of ritual, mourning, or even beliefs about life and death. Such practices are hallmarks of complex cognition and emotional depth. In addition, cave art and decorative objects associated with Neanderthals indicate that they may have engaged in artistic expression. This creativity challenges the old view of them as incapable of symbolic thought. Their social lives were equally complex. Neanderthals lived in groups, cooperating for hunting, sharing resources, and caring for one another. Evidence of healed injuries shows that they looked after the sick and elderly, ensuring that even those who could not contribute to hunting or gathering were still protected and valued. This compassion is a striking reminder that they were not so different from us in their capacity for empathy and care. They likely communicated through speech or a form of language, as studies of their vocal anatomy suggest they had the physical ability to produce a wide range of sounds. This would have been essential for coordinating hunts, teaching skills, and maintaining strong social bonds. Neanderthal adaptability is another important part of their identity. They lived across vast regions of Europe and Western Asia for hundreds of thousands of years, enduring drastic changes in climate and environment. From icy tundras to wooded landscapes, they developed survival strategies that allowed them to thrive in varied conditions. This adaptability speaks to their intelligence and resilience as a species. They were not stuck in one environment or way of living. Instead, they adjusted their tools, diets, and habits to match the world around them. Another key feature of Neanderthals was their close relationship with nature. Unlike modern humans, who would later develop agriculture and permanent settlements, Neanderthals lived directly in balance with their environment. They knew how to use natural resources efficiently, and their survival depended on intimate knowledge of animals, plants, and seasonal patterns. Their ability to read and adapt to the natural world is evidence of a deep connection with their surroundings, something that modern humans have largely lost. It is also worth noting that Neanderthals endured physical hardships that reveal just how tough their lives were. Their strong bodies were often scarred by injuries, many from hunting large animals up close with spears. Life expectancy was shorter than ours, often only around 40 years, and survival required constant resilience. Yet their communities gave them strength, and their ability to care for the wounded demonstrates that survival was not just about individual strength, but about group cooperation and loyalty. The story of the Neanderthals is not just about survival, it is also about identity. They were a unique human species, different from us but sharing many similarities. They laughed, struggled, loved, and created just as we do. For too long, they were dismissed as evolutionary dead ends, but the evidence now shows that they were capable beings whose legacy lives on in us. In their bones, tools, art, and burial sites, we see reflections of ourselves, our intelligence, our creativity, and our humanity. In the end, to truly know the Neanderthals is to understand that they were not primitive, but remarkable humans in their own right. They survived in some of the harshest conditions on Earth, built strong communities, developed complex technologies, and expressed symbolic thought. Their story is not one of failure, but of resilience and adaptation across hundreds of thousands of years. By studying them, we learn not only about a lost branch of our family, but also about the essence of what it means to be human. The legacy of the Neanderthals is one of the most intriguing aspects of human history, because it is not simply a story of an extinct species, but a tale of survival, connection, and inheritance. For a long time, the common belief was that Neanderthals disappeared completely when Homo sapiens spread across Europe and Asia, leaving no trace behind. They were often described as evolutionary failures, a side branch of humanity that could not compete with the intelligence and adaptability of modern humans. However, new scientific discoveries, particularly in genetics, have completely changed this perspective. Today, we know that Neanderthals are not truly gone. They live on inside us, in our DNA, our biology, and even in some of our behaviors. The first revelation of Neanderthal legacy came through DNA analysis. In the early 2000s, scientists began sequencing Neanderthal genomes from preserved bones, and the results were astonishing. They revealed that non-African modern humans carry between 1 and 2% Neanderthal DNA. This means that when Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa and encountered Neanderthals in Europe and Asia, the two groups did not remain separate. Instead, they interbred, forming bonds that were both intimate and enduring. Far from being entirely separate species, Neanderthals and modern humans were close relatives who shared not just environments but also genes. This blending of lineages means that Neanderthals are literally part of who we are today. The presence of Neanderthal DNA in modern humans is not just a scientific curiosity, it has real biological effects. Research has shown that Neanderthal genes influence many aspects of human health and behavior. For example, certain immune system genes inherited from Neanderthals help modern humans fight off diseases. These genes may have given our ancestors a survival advantage when they first entered unfamiliar environments in Europe and Asia, exposing them to new pathogens. At the same time, some Neanderthal genetic traits are linked to conditions such as allergies, skin sensitivity, or even the way our bodies respond to sunlight. They may also play roles in metabolism, influencing how we process fats and sugars. In this way, the Neanderthal legacy is written into our very biology, shaping who we are in subtle but meaningful ways. Their legacy also extends beyond DNA to the cultural exchanges that may have occurred between the two species. As Homo sapiens encountered Neanderthals, it is likely that they shared knowledge, techniques, and perhaps even symbolic practices. Archaeological evidence suggests that both groups used fire, created tools, and possibly made art. In some regions, tools associated with early modern humans appear remarkably similar to Neanderthal designs, hinting at a transfer of ideas or a blending of traditions. If this is true, then Neanderthals not only contributed to our genetic makeup but also to the cultural toolkit that allowed humanity to flourish. The question of why Neanderthals went extinct while Homo sapiens survived is still debated, but even this extinction tells us something about their legacy. Climate change, competition for resources, and possibly the arrival of modern humans all played roles in their decline around 40,000 years ago. Yet their disappearance was not absolute. The fact that their genes live on in billions of people today shows that their story did not end, it transformed. Rather than being replaced, they became integrated into the broader human lineage. This challenges the old narrative of survival of the fittest, replacing it with a more complex story of interconnection and shared survival. Another part of their legacy is the way they have reshaped our understanding of what it means to be human. For centuries, Neanderthals were mocked as brutish cavemen, seen as the opposite of civilization and intelligence. This image was used to elevate Homo sapiens as uniquely advanced. But the more we learn about Neanderthals, the more we realize how similar they were to us. They buried their dead, cared for the sick, created tools with skill, and perhaps even produced art and jewelry. They were not failures, but humans with their own ways of adapting to the world. Recognizing this forces us to reconsider our place in nature, acknowledging that intelligence and creativity were not ours alone, but shared across branches of the human family tree. Neanderthals also leave us with a moral legacy. Their story is a reminder of how fragile species can be in the face of environmental change and competition. Despite their intelligence and strength, they could not withstand the challenges of their time. In an age when modern humans are facing global challenges such as climate change and resource scarcity, the story of Neanderthal extinction becomes a cautionary tale. It reminds us that survival depends not just on strength but also on cooperation, adaptability, and foresight. At the same time, the enduring presence of Neanderthal DNA in our bodies can be seen as a symbol of unity rather than division. It shows that humanity has never been a single, pure line but a tapestry woven from multiple threads. Our ancestors were not isolated beings but part of a broader human network that included Neanderthals and possibly other hominin groups like Denisovans. This interconnectedness enriches our identity, reminding us that diversity and blending are at the heart of our story. It makes the human journey not one of separation but of coming together. There is also a cultural legacy in how we remember Neanderthals today. As research progresses, we are learning to see them not as shadows in our past, but as relatives whose lives and struggles were meaningful. Artists reconstruct their faces, giving them expressions that reveal warmth, thoughtfulness, and humanity. Museums display their tools and bones not as curiosities but as testaments to a life once lived. In literature, film, and popular imagination, Neanderthals are no longer portrayed only as cave-dwelling brutes but increasingly as complex beings with their own intelligence and dignity. This shift in perspective reflects our growing understanding that they deserve respect as part of our shared heritage. Ultimately, the legacy of the Neanderthals is that they are still with us, not just in our blood but in our shared humanity. Their extinction was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a new chapter in which they live on inside every person of non-African descent. They remind us that human history is not a straight line of progress, but a web of connections, with different branches intertwining and shaping one another. In learning about them, we also learn about ourselves, our strengths, our vulnerabilities, and our capacity for resilience. The Neanderthals were not outsiders to humanity but participants in its unfolding story. Their legacy is one of survival through us, a reminder that no species is ever truly gone as long as its influence endures. Every time we look in the mirror, part of what we see reflects their contribution to who we are today. They are not just figures of the past, they are part of our present, written into our genes, our bodies, and our shared human journey. The story of the Neanderthals teaches us that humanity is not defined by separation but by connection, blending, and shared survival. Their legacy reminds us to value diversity and adaptability, for these are the true keys to enduring through time.